Hey guys, it's Ben. 2020 was quite the year. Over the last roughly 12 months, the FTO community has really grown so incredibly much, and there's so many great things that have happened for this puzzle and solving and pretty much everything. And I thought it would just be great to take a look back on everything that's happened, all the people who have gotten into solving, all of the records that have been achieved, and all the great accomplishments that have been made. Now, I won't specifically be going into single solve or average record milestones, but if you would like to see the history of that, I have actually put together a sheet showing the unofficial world record history of the dates when each of the single and average 5 records were achieved. So if you're interested, the link to that will be in the description. In general, I'm really trying to cover all of the neat things that have happened, cool community events, and stuff like that. I also ran a survey in the community a couple months ago, and we'll be taking a look at all of the results from that survey as well. But even more than looking back is looking forward. So what I'm also going to do is just share my general thoughts on the community and its potential future, what I do hope to see happen, and where records could potentially be going. Alright, I think that's perfect. Roll the video. So before we jump into this, the footage that you're watching right here is of a session that I did at the very end of 2019, and also when I got my 3498 sub 35 average of 5. So this is pretty cool to watch to just really see how different my solving skill was back then compared to now. In the few months leading up to 2020, there wasn't really a whole lot that happened other than me continually solving and improving, other than me publishing my solution document for the first time, and also Brandon learning to solve and becoming the second person ever to get a sub 1 average. So starting off 2020 with the month of January, this was of course the month when the SAC 9 competition happened, where I showed Dan Pashishkov how I solved the FTO and effectively taught him how to do it as well. That night was absolutely crazy. After just going through like a couple walkthrough solves with him, he was just going absolutely off the rails, thinking of all of this cool theoretical stuff, limits of solving, and just so much. It was a wonderful night, and I'll never forget it. Even from very early on, I knew he had a huge amount of potential within speed solving the puzzle, and sure enough, he absolutely pulled through in the rest of the year, which we'll get into as we go on. Then coming in February, some much more exciting stuff starts. So I published my beginner's tutorial near the very beginning of the month, and I really like to call this the anniversary date of the community in a sense, just because this was really when the material was a lot more accessible to people and others really got into learning how to solve the puzzle more. Shortly after, I also started the streaming of my solves on Twitch, which was pretty cool. And there was another competition in this month, Reno Winter 2020, that I went to, and we also had an unofficial round of FTO at this competition. It's funny to think that also this was the month when Michael started solving, and he actually tried to participate but ended up DNFing the round. Really funny. I still have the scorecard as well. Man, how it's very much changed since then. Finally, another really big milestone was the Fto Rankings Leaderboard. I started this up. It was John Allums who originally suggested this on a YouTube comment in one of my videos, and I really have to thank them very much for doing so. I really do think the rankings had a massive impact on people pushing boundaries of speed solving with this puzzle. And as for notable results, I got the first ever sub 40 average of 100 solves, which was also streamed live, and that was absolutely a blast to finally get through that 40-second barrier. There were a couple things in March. This was the month where I think new techniques from someone other than myself, specifically Ed, really started to get developed. He was experimenting with half-color neutrality for solving, and also things like arrow blocks and pseudo-triples and that sort of thing. So I guess where the method really kind of started to get developed more from others' inputs. Also later in the month, I managed to bound the God's number above 20 moves for the FTO. And to be completely honest, this was probably already done by somebody else, but I couldn't find any publication online about it. So I guess in a sense I was the first to kind of get the word out there, so that's okay. And this was also the month where I got my first sub 25 FTO single 24.10. Pretty awesome. Even got it on Pi Day. And now getting into April, this I think is where things started to really pick up in terms of the whole communal aspect. I organized the first online weekly FTO competition that first Sunday, Easter. This was also a suggestion from someone. Ed specifically suggested to do an online competition like this, and I'm really glad he did, because I did have the thought in the back of my mind of, oh, it would be kind of cool to have a competition, but him really suggesting that I actually go through with it made me go through with it, and I'm super happy I did that. The competition also, I think, had a huge impact on people wanting to actually participate more and get into solving and kind of go for speed. This was also the month where we started to see some more streamers stream FTO solves on Twitch. Dan, Aiden, a couple others, and of course Dan also started popularizing hashtag FTO for WCA, starting up that movement, which is pretty neat. This was also the month where I started publishing more tutorial content. My advanced tutorial series started up, and I started producing more stuff for this that kind of goes more in depth into the solution, just to provide more resources for people, because a beginner's tutorial is great, but there really needed to be more resources for all of my FTO knowledge. Also this month, thanks to me talking about the God's number from March, an upper bound was then achieved to be below 49 moves, thanks to KC Mihalo, which is really fantastic. So then we had an upper and lower bound for the God's number of the puzzle. And in terms of notable results, we can't forget it. Dan finally dethroning my 2-year reign on the world bests for FTO, getting a 23 single solve and getting number 1 in single. Really, really awesome. And then in the month of May, it was really just kind of building off of that, a little more of the same. Some more advanced tutorials came out from me, including my modding tutorial. There were also some more last 3 triple techniques discovered, such as Niklas, which is actually something that I found in a video call with Dan and Brandon one night, which is really funny. And Dan also managed the world best average of 5, again taking that from me, with a 28.87, the first sub 29. Whew, June, okay. TCP was invented in this month by Aiden Bryant, so a huge, massive breakthrough in the solution method to really help speed up last 3 triples. I know that there's still top solvers that aren't really using TCP, but I do believe personally that it is the future of FTO speed solving, and I use it and have been able to get great results with it. And probably one of the most exciting things ever, FTO was announced for the unofficial Cubing at Home online competition as an unofficial event. Oh man, everyone was super excited for this one, and me definitely. Being able to have this in an unofficial competition as big as this one was really a great breakthrough, I think. And we have a very important result for this month. After basically the entire month of absolutely grinding, Dan finally got the first ever sub 20 FTO single, 1968. Huge breakthrough. The rest of these months really start to pick up so much. There's just so many great things that happened. So in July, we had the Cubing at Home competition actually go through, of course, and it was just really incredible that FTO was able to be shown on the spotlight on the Twitch stream and to everybody, and it was really great to be on there, and I'm very thankful for being invited as a guest to talk about the puzzle. Also, Steve Griggs started hosting the Chunky League head-to-head matches, and actually the FTO match was the second one, Aiden Bryant versus Michael Larson, which was a huge blast to watch. I really have to thank Steve for doing all of his Chunky League FTO matches. It really helped get more publicity for the puzzle, I think. We also saw, which is pretty cool, the first proper magnetic FTO from Isaac Myers. I originally magnetized my old Landland back in October of 2019, but it wasn't done properly because the magnets literally did nothing and there was no press fitting. So it was cool to finally see proper magnets in the puzzle and to see how they help improve the turning. Also, Kit started up the FTO Discord. Huge thanks to him, and I'm glad that he went ahead and just did it, because I would have been pretty stubborn about doing Discord. I'm just not good with that stuff, so thank you, Kit. And a really cool result, we finally got a sub 20 second solve on video, Aiden's 1999, one of my favorite solves on FTO of all time. Unfortunately, these next couple of months I wasn't really around the community a whole lot, so there's maybe a couple things I might have missed, but this is what I got for August and September. So in August, we finally had the switch to 30 move scrambles as a default for the rankings, and I think this was an important push. 25 move scrambles really just did not reach far enough into the state space, so we were getting sort of limited scrambles in that aspect. So making the definitive rule of 30 was a good move. Also something fun, the Cubicle announced they were going to be making FTO stickers available on their website, which was neat that they at least said that they were going to try to do something cool for FTO to kind of help the community out. The stickers didn't actually become available until like 2021, but I'll let it slide. And finally for August, we have a really cool result. Tyler claiming Dan's bounty for the average of 5, finally getting the first place average of 5, 23.92. Really incredible. And September, September was pretty cool as well. More people were really just kind of practicing and improving. There were some more new solvers that kind of really started to improve quickly, such as Katie, for example. But the really awesome thing in September was the Cubers Live FTO Melee announcement. This was really cool to see an entire online competition dedicated to FTO specifically. No words can express how thankful I am for the Cubers Live team putting this event together for everybody. We really, really appreciate it. And in the beginning of September, actually, it was finally the end of Dan's reign. Tyler golded. It was the second competitor to gold on the rankings. That means he got world rank 1 in every category: single, average of 5, average of 12, and average of 100. Truly nuts. And hopefully we'll see more gold competitors in the future. For the month of October, again, the Cubers Live FTO Melee was happening, and finally the first live stream of the 2 brackets, the winners and losers brackets, happened. These were an absolute blast to watch, and I actually got to commentate the lower bracket, which was great fun. I have to say, this was probably the most fun competition to watch ever. The clutch win from Tyler at the end by 0.07 seconds on the last solve. Whew, that was really, really exciting. You should definitely go back and watch it. Also this month, I organized the 8 Solvers 1 Scramble project. This was a huge blast to do. I want to thank everyone again for submitting their solutions and participating. Hopefully I can do another one of these again in the future. And there's actually a pretty cool result that I found in October. We got the first ever pure sub 30 average of 100 solves. That's right. Tyler got more than 100 sub 30 FTO solves in a row. That is just mind-boggling. Moving on into November here, we actually got some people involved with the creators of CS Timer and CS Timer Plus to add some improvements to FTO within those timers, which was really great. 30 move scrambles were finally made as a default in the UI, which was just such a convenience. I could not decide for the life of me which cool result from this month to include here, so I'm going to include 2. First, Michael managed to achieve the first ever counting sub 20 solve in an average of 5. That is just super cool. Michael is such an excellent solver, and yeah, he totally deserves that one. And super exciting as well, we got the first ever female solver to sub 20, Katie Hull. Katie Hull with a 19.50. That's just super, super cool. In fact, I think she was one of the fastest to achieve a sub 20 single solve. She started in early August, and by the very end of November got this. Wow, that's just incredible to me. And now finally, to conclude off 2020 with the month of December, so many exciting things happened in this month, and it's just great to see such a wonderful conclusion. We had 2 custom FTO designs from me and Aiden printed and tested, finally managing to get, or at least attempt to get, some new hardware made, which is really, really wonderful. Another cool thing that happened, and this is actually a secret for now, but you'll see it in the future, odd TCP algs were discovered for the odd permutation PF cases. Yes, I did discover these, and I will be making a video about them soon, so stay tuned for that. Also, Wes Evans, the developer of Cubers.io, was adding FTO into the competition this month, which was just really wonderful, and as a side note to that, we also got Scramble image generation, which was also integrated into CS Timer Plus. That's right, we literally have 30 move scrambles and scramble images in CS Timer now. Just wow, I never thought this would happen in a million years. Huge, huge, huge thank you to everybody involved to make that happen. Also really cool, we got the first ever random state FTO scramble successfully generated by Zizzy, which is really, really awesome. This also led to random state scrambles being implemented in more online competitions. And we're still not done. Another great thing that happened is FTO was successfully voted into the Speed Solving Weekly competition starting in 2021. Votes were actually successfully in less than 12 hours after the original poll was posted. So, wow, that's just so awesome to see so much support for this event. And last, but most certainly not least in terms of notable results for December, the first ever sub 20 average of 5 solves was achieved. Dan got a 19.62 average, truly cementing himself as one of the greatest FTO solvers of all time. It really still does blow me away how incredible 2020 has been for FTO and the community. Truly everyone who has participated and gotten into solving and everything has really helped the cause. And with that, we're pretty much where we are today. That is a... Yes! 34.98 average of 5! Finally! Finally sub 35. Please tell me you're recording. Yes! So at the very end of 2020, I ran a quick survey in the FTO community to ask some general questions about each of the people who participated, to kind of collect some data and to kind of see what the community is like in general. So I thought this would be pretty cool, and I'm going to showcase the results here now. So the first question I asked, what is your age in years? And here's a little chart showing this. We had responses that went as young as 13 years old all the way to 40 years old, which is actually pretty neat to see some older people getting into solving here. The median age is 21 years, so I think that's pretty neat to kind of see that median age being a little bit higher than the general median age you'd expect for cubing at around 17 years old, I think. So it really shows that we've got some older solvers who are participating, so that's really awesome. The second question, roughly how long have you been cubing in years? We had a lot of variety in these results as well. We got 2 people saying 1 year or less. And actually there's a total of 5 people who had been cubing for longer than 10 years. That is, wow, just incredible. And the median for this set is about 6 years. So it seems like most of the solvers here have had quite a few miles on the tires when it comes to speed cubing in general. The third question I asked, how many WCA competitions everyone had attended? This was also quite a mix of results. We had 3 people who had actually been to 0 competitions, never been to a WCA competition. We had 6 people who had been to between 1 and 10 competitions, 4 people between 10 and 20, 1 person between 20 and 30, and continuing kind of up like that. And we had actually 3 people who had been to over 100 competitions. Wow, that's really incredible. That's a lot of years of cubing. The median was about 13 competitions, so we can see that people generally have gone to comps. Unfortunately, not so much right now, but yeah. Next, I asked roughly how long they had been solving FTO in months. We actually had 1 person who was less than 1 month into solving, so they had started solving in December of 2020. But it seems that typically people had been between 3 and 8 months into solving FTO. There were actually 2 people who had been more than 1.5 years into solving. I'm one of those people. But overall, the median length was about 6 months. And, this makes sense because, again, the community really started in the beginning of 2020. So, halfway through is 6 months. Next, of course, I asked what people roughly averaged on FTO in seconds. And here's what we got for this. There were 4 people who averaged less than 30 seconds, 3 people between 30 and 40 seconds, 4 people between 40 and 50 seconds, 2 people between 50 and 60 seconds, and it continues on like that. There were a total of 7 people who were over a minute on average, and 3 people over 2 minutes. The median global average here came out to about 50 seconds, so actually under a minute. That's pretty cool. So those were all the numerical charts, and now we'll take a look at some of the qualitative questions. This next question, what are you most passionate about within cubing? With the answer choices being speed solving, organizing events, producing YouTube content, collecting or building puzzles, or other. The vast majority of solvers were into speed solving, which of course makes sense. The next 2 top answers were organizing events and collecting and building puzzles. So it's pretty cool to kind of see that variety in there within different aspects of cubing in general. We had 1 person who was into method and algorithm development and another who was just into casually solving, not necessarily going for speed. The next one of these questions, what are or were your main WCA official events, including speed solving out of context of a competition, just in case someone hadn't gone to any competitions but still was into certain events. Of course, the 3x3 cube was the most dominant here with 16 votes, but there were 3 other events that stuck out here, 4x4 with 7 votes, and Square 1 as well with 7 votes, so that's kind of cool to see Square 1 pop up there. Very popular side event in this question. And then after that with 5x5 cube coming in with 6 votes. So other than the 3x3, there was actually quite a nice spread here, although there weren't any results for 5 blind or multi-blind, I guess technically for obvious reasons. This next question I thought was pretty fun to put in. Do you consider yourself a casual or dedicated solver of FTO? Just to kind of gauge how into people are with this. We actually had a fairly close split here, about 50-50, but a slight edge over casual solvers. So we had 57% of voters putting in casual and 42% for dedicated. So that's awesome. That's really great to see that even split. And this just goes to show that you don't have to get into this puzzle for speed. You can just be casually solving it and, still have plenty of fun. Another fun question here, do you use a custom color scheme for your FTO, including another solver's color scheme potentially? And it seems that most people don't, but it's actually still quite a good split here. We have about a third of people who do use a custom color scheme. Of course, I'm one of those people. And the other 2/3 do not, I guess, just sticking to the regular old land color scheme. So people just don't mind, I guess. Another color-related question. I asked if people were color neutral, even partially, when solving on the 3x3 and or the FTO. Just to kind of see if there was a correlation there. Just about half, so 45% of people put neither. About a third or 30% put just 3x3. And the remaining 25% put that, yeah, they are color neutral on FTO and or 3x3. So that's pretty interesting there. I personally fall into that 30% category, just 3x3. This next question was kind of looking at how into people are to make their puzzle good. So I asked what they had done to work on their puzzles to improve the solving and check all that apply to them. We had 14 people do a spring or hardware swap, so this isn't everyone, and this is understandable because some people do like the stock springs in the land hardware, but then others don't, and that's why they swap. 16 people had done piece modding, so that's just modding the puzzle to reduce the sharp edges and of course make it turn a little bit better. 4 people had actually gone through the process of magnetizing their FTO, so yeah, I think there's only about 4 or 5 magnetic FTOs in the world at the moment, so that's pretty crazy. And then 2 people, this last question was kind of a joke here, but I said designing your own FTO because you're tired of trash hardware. I thought I would be the only person who would get to vote for this one, but we actually got a second vote, so that's neat. And that's actually pretty much it for the survey questions. I also did add some personal questions at the end, which I'll be going through later on in the video, but this is a cool way to kind of look at the general status of the FTO community right now and to kind of demographically see what the solvers are like and the people who are participating in this awesome community. Overall, it's pretty safe to say that FTO has come a very long way. When I first started solving this puzzle back in 2018, I had absolutely no idea or any expectation of the future. It was really just me experimenting with it, honestly, just to see how fast I could get. Especially since I had a new method and was really trying out some method development in general, which I had never done before. And now that I'm here in 2021, I really don't think I could have asked for anything better out of FTO than the amazing community we've gotten. And it really is true that I don't think I would be as fast as I am right now without the help from others in the community really pushing me and encouraging me to get better. The footage you're watching right now is part of a session that I just casually sat down and did the other day, just decided to record some FTO solves on video. And looking at this compared to the old footage, it's just, wow, what a difference. But now I'll go ahead and take this moment to talk about my general thoughts on the community and where it can go in the future and what I think could happen to really take things even further. At the moment, there are a lot of things that people want to have happen for FTO. One of the main ones being better hardware and just better puzzles in general. And I do think that given that I'm not quite as good of a solver and not at the top ranks anymore, this is really something that I want to try and focus attention on. I currently have my V2 design. It is printed and it does work very well. The mechanism is excellent, but I'm going to try and find a way to get this into more people's hands. There are just so many ridiculous hardware issues with existing land puzzles that really need to go away. Things like having inconsistent cores that cause certain puzzles to be easier to work with than others, quite simply an old outdated mechanism. In general, having to use puzzles that really are not designed for what we're doing with them, With simple fixes like anti-popping and corner twisting, better cores for tensioning to prevent strips, stuff like that, it would not only make it more enjoyable to solve, but it would also encourage more people to be able to get into it because the barrier for entry would be a lot less. This is really something that I do want to focus on, and hopefully I can make it happen for everybody, so I will keep trying. Another thing that I think, of course, people would love to see is more competitions for this puzzle. Last year has really proven to us that FTO online competitions are really, really fun for participating and even spectating. The event is just really cool to watch. The variability in the solves means that you really never know what a person's going to get. They could get a sub 20. They could get a 35 because of a pop. You don't know. And I do think that aspect just really makes it really enjoyable. Competitions also encourage people to, of course, practice, and that can definitely have an impact on people being able to break solving barriers. I do have a few ideas in mind for competitions that I'm thinking of organizing, but, I'd love to see others give it a try as well. I mean, the Cubers Live competition was absolutely fantastic. Having an entire competition themed around the puzzle was just fantastic. And you know what? If anyone is interested in needing advice to host an FTO competition, you can totally get in touch with me or anyone else in the community, and we'd be totally happy to help. And of course, I'll go ahead and address this now. I think the number one thing that a lot of people want to see is this to be officially sanctioned as a proper WCA event. This would be, of course, absolutely amazing, but there are a lot of barriers here and a lot of things to consider as well. I think the puzzle in and of itself as an event would be perfectly fine. There's nothing really getting in the way of having it organized at an official competition. There's no logistical issues. There's nothing really seriously weird about it that would require extra regulations. It would be pretty straightforward to run, and time constraints wouldn't be too awful either. It's not too long of an event for people to solve, but also not too short. Implementing things like, random state scrambling, that's already been achieved, so it doesn't seem unreasonable to be able to do that. And scramble images and other just general stuff that's needed to have it actually organized. Most of those problems, if they were even that in the first place, have basically been tackled at this point. But of course, the real main thing that we have to ask is if there is even incentive to add a new event in the first place, regardless if it's FTO or not. Unfortunately, right now, COVID-19 is still a problem in the world, and it's not really possible to hold WCA competitions in lots of different places. And it's probably one of the main focuses of the WCA at the moment to be able to introduce competitions again. So spending time adding a new WCA event when competitions aren't really going to be able to hold events in general at the moment is not really productive. However, of course, if the virus situation does end up improving and competitions get introduced again, then there's definitely a possibility that a new event may, in fact, be considered. In my personal opinion, I don't really mind whether or not it becomes an event because either way, I'm still going to have fun with the puzzle, and I really think that's how a lot of people should look at it. Whether you're doing it officially or unofficially, it's fun. And I really do get the most enjoyment out of the community as a whole and talking to people and sharing ideas and all of that. But the number one thing that I think definitely would need to happen for a lot of any of those three previous things I mentioned to happen is we need simply more people to get into solving the puzzle and participating in the community. The epicenter of the FTO community right now is pretty much in the United States. We, of course, have other solvers in other regions such as Europe and New Zealand and Canada and so forth. But again, this is really only a fraction of the worldwide community of cubers. In order to get more people into solving, we just really need to spread the word and encourage people to do it. Another thing that I want to see if I can try and do is get my solution published in multiple languages, so that way others just have a little bit less of a barrier to entry to learn my speed method. Or honestly, any method, even with cage method or reduction method, are totally other methods that are viable to solve the puzzle. They haven't been proven to be quite as fast as Cisco, but they're still fun and they still work. So even getting those published somewhere in multiple languages would just be fantastic. I also really want to try and see if I can get a website going that will just have all of the FTO knowledge base just right there, accessible to everybody. With the rankings there, lists of upcoming competitions, online or offline, just a bunch of stuff. To be able to have all the resources in one place I think would really help, so we'll see what I can do about that. So far though, I can say the community has absolutely made massive progress. I would say, yeah, pretty much right now it's growing faster than it ever has been in any of the previous months, and it can only go up. And hey, if you're watching this and you've never solved an FTO and you're kind of curious about it, I'm more than happy to help you out, as well as anyone else in the community is. I have a lot of resources on my channel here, and a lot of other people have their own resources as well. And the community is just more than happy to welcome you in, so if you're even slightly curious, I'd recommend giving it a try. You really have nothing to lose. Now time for, of course, the fun part, which is making predictions about future solving records and milestones. I think this one really does depend on whether or not we get universally better hardware for everybody, so I will probably split this into two predictions, one with or without better hardware. So if we just consider 2021 and what the record could become by the end of the year there, assuming hardware doesn't significantly change and we're still kind of dealing with land puzzles and so forth, I do think a sub 13 single is pretty likely, so a 12 point something. And also probably a sub 19 average of 5, maybe like 18.5 or something like that. But perhaps not too much further. The hardware really does hold people back, even with magnets and modding. I'd probably expect these to be very long-term records as well. However, if we do get new hardware in the future, which I think is definitely possible at some point to be quite likely, then I think the record times could get much faster. I would actually expect a sub 10 single to be possible, yes. With better hardware comes better turning speed, and we'd also probably have a lot better solutions for stuff by then. So with quite a bit of luck, and I mean quite a bit of luck, a sub 10 is probably possible, but who knows when. As for average, I think in the very, very long term, a sub 15 average could probably be achieved, but that is very difficult. And of course, we would probably most definitely see people globally averaging under 20 seconds. That's kind of crazy to think about, but, you know, given enough time and better improvements, that's definitely possible. So yeah, absolutely feel free to hold me accountable for these predictions. By the end of this year, it might actually be pretty interesting to look back at them as well. Alright, so as promised, here were some short answer questions that I did ask in that survey, and here are some of my favorite responses that I got. The first question, what do you enjoy the most about FTO, both solving-wise and community-wise? We had one person who said, solving-wise, the uniqueness of the puzzle and how much there still is to improve on in terms of methods, and community-wise, how nice everyone is and how dedicated everyone is to this unofficial event. I absolutely agree. FTO is just a really unique solving experience overall, and I can still say that even now after having been solving this puzzle for almost 3 years, I really can't imagine it ever getting boring, especially with the new method developments. Another question I asked, what has surprised you the most throughout your experiences so far with FTO? And another person here said, I only got an FTO because a friend of mine kept going on and on how he really likes the puzzle, and I didn't think I'd be a serious solver, but I got hooked after I got the basics down and within 2 weeks became faster than my friend. Yeah, that's a pretty cool story there. That's just so neat. I do think this is one of those puzzles where improvement really shows itself early on really quickly, and it's very encouraging. And now here's a big question. What would you like to see happen the most in the future for FTO and or the solving community? And here someone said, obviously I would like to see FTO become a WCA event. However, even more than that, I want to see the FTO community grow, and I want to meet others and have fun solving, talking with them. This honestly pretty much sums up my thoughts exactly. Like, even more than it becoming an event and doing it in competition, just being around in the community, talking with people and having fun and so forth, just sharing these experiences is just so amazing. And I just love that I'm able to share my initial experiences that I first had when I was first solving this puzzle. It's just so incredibly rewarding. And finally, I just asked if anybody had personal stories or comments that they'd like to share. I had actually quite a few people here thanking me so much for everything that I've done and all the work I put into the community to make it grow, so I really, really appreciate it, you guys. That's just awesome. Thank you so much. One person specifically said, my first sub 20 is still my proudest cubing achievement in general to this day. I would not have been solving this puzzle if I did not see Ben Streeter solving it in person. He is such an amazing guy, and I can't wait till competitions start up again so I can compete against him in FTO in person. And yes, I do actually know who you are. Thank you so much, man. That really means a lot. So yeah, I think that's going to pretty much conclude this video. Really hope you guys enjoyed this one. It's been a lot of fun to kind of look back at everything and just to think about just how significant FTO has become, not just within our community, but within the whole cubing community. It makes me very happy. And here's to the future. There we go. That's good average. Very good average. I will do one more solve. Okay, that's I'm gonna call it there. All right, nice.